You're listening to The Brief Wake Up, your mindful start to the day. I'm Handel, your daily coffee companion, helping you wake up informed, thoughtful, and maybe a little bit more amused before the day gets old. If you're commuting, corralling kids, or just standing in line for caffeine, you're in the right place. Let's get you caught up. Let's start with what's most important, our health. Vaping, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Today on the health front, we're taking a deep breath and asking, what do we really know about vaping? It's been sold as a cleaner, cooler cousin of smoking, but the science says the story is a lot more complicated. Let's start with the good. For adults who already smoke, switching completely to vaping can lower exposure to some of the 7,000 toxic chemicals that come from burning tobacco. That means, if and only if you fully replace cigarettes, there may be harm reduction benefit. The key word there is replace, not add. Now the bad. Most vapes still deliver nicotine, which is powerfully addictive. Teens and young adults are especially at risk. Nicotine can alter brain development, affecting attention, mood, and impulse control. And while you're not inhaling smoke, you are pulling in chemicals like heavy metals, flavoring agents, and ultrafine particles that irritate the lung and blood vessels. Recent studies link vaping to higher blood pressure, air inflammation, and even early signs of heart strain, especially in people who both vape and smoke. And then comes the ugly. We still don't know the long-term effects. Vaping just hasn't been around long enough, but we do know the risks are real. The 2019 outbreak of vaping-related lung injuries, known as EVALI, hospitalized thousands. Most cases came from black market THC cartridges containing vitamin E acetate, but it proved a bigger point. These devices aren't harmless. And now, new reports throw a 733% rise in child vaping hospitalizations, including kids under 5. This has been shown to be from accidental exposure to liquid nicotine and flavored pods left around the house. So here's a takeaway. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you do smoke and you're switching to quit, do it fully and with medical guidance. Because until the research catches up, vaping still sits in that murky middle. Less smoke, but far from safe. That's your health check for today. Take a deep breath, but make it a clean one. And now on to the news. U.S. flight cuts during an ongoing government shutdown. Big turbulence ahead, and not from the weather. The Federal Aviation Administration says it will cut U.S. air traffic by about 10% across roughly 40 major airports as the government shutdown drags on. These are some of the busiest hubs in the world. Think Atlanta, Chicago O'Hare, New York, Dallas, and Los Angeles, from which thousands of flights transit daily. Now, with many air traffic controllers and aviation staff without pay, the FAA says it has to slow things down before fatigue and staffing shortages turn into safety risks. The cutbacks are small, about 4% this week, climbing to the full 10% next week if no funding deal is reached. Passenger cargo and private planes are all affected, though international routes may get an exception. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy called it a necessary but temporary safety measure, saying, "Our number one priority is to make sure when you travel safely." And FAA Administrator Brian Bedford added, "We can't ignore it. We're going to take action before a crisis develops." For travelers, that means a tougher stretch ahead. More delays and cancellations, especially during peak hours. Longer lines at security and baggage, and potentially missed connections as airlines reroute planes and crews. If you're flying soon, double check your flight status early and often. Consider alternative airports and give yourself a big time cushion. With the holidays right around the corner, even a 10% slowdown could ripple through the skies. The FAA says it's a short-term move, But until Washington finds common ground, America's airspace is running on thin air. That's your flight check for today's news. More updates as the story and the skies keep shifting. And now for tech and culture. The Turing Test. Can machines think? Let's take a moment this morning to rewind all the way back to 1950, when a British mathematician named Alan Turing asked one of the most important questions in modern history. To explore that, he designed what became known as the Turing Test. The setup was simple. A human asked questions to two unseen participants, one person, one computer. The human can't reliably tell which is which. Turing said the machine could be called intelligent. It was a radical idea for its time. Back then, computers were the size of rooms and couldn't even play checkers properly. But Turing was looking ahead, imagining a world where imitation might become indistinguishable from understanding. Fast forward to now, and we're living inside that thought experiment. When you open a chat window for customer support and wonder if you're talking to a person or a bot, that's a Turing test moment. When AI finishes your sentence, drafts your email, or recommends a movie that feels weirdly accurate, it's not just automation, it's mimicry. Every day, we're testing and being tested in subtle ways. But the question has evolved. It's not just can machines think, it's what does thinking even mean anymore? In Turing's day, thinking meant reasoning, logic, and maybe a bit of creativity. But today, AI models don't think, they predict. They analyze vast patterns in data and guess what fits best next. When a chatbot sounds insightful, it's not feeling or reflecting. It's drawing from probabilities shaped by human conversation. Still, there's something undeniably human in what happens next. We project meaning onto the machine. We see empathy, humor, personality, even when we know it's code. That's the new Turing test. Not just whether AI fools us, but how easily we want to be fooled. Practically, the Turing test shows up everywhere. In customer service bots, therapy apps, AI companions, and even creative tools. Developers still benchmark human interaction as the level of progress. But a deeper shift is happening on purpose. Today's frontier isn't about AI pretending to be human. It's about AI helping humans become more capable. When an AI translates languages instantly, writes code, or spots early signs of disease, it's passing a different kind of test. One where usefulness matters more than illusion. So maybe the real evolution of Turing's idea isn't imitation, it's collaboration. The next generation of Turing tests isn't about deception but perception. Turing once said, "We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done." 75 years later, we have come far enough to realize that intelligence, human or artificial, isn't about passing for a human. It's about amplifying what makes us human. Curiosity, creativity, and conscience. So, next time your device seems to understand you, remember, you're not just talking to a machine. You're participating in one of the oldest experiments in modern thought. A test that is as much about us as it is about them. And now for our big sip. The spotlight effect. You're not being watched, as much as you think. Ever walk into a room and suddenly feel like everyone's looking at you? That little voice saying, they notice my shirt's wrinkled, my hair's off, and they remember that thing I said last week. That's not paranoia, that's psychology. It's called the spotlight effect, or a tendency to overestimate how much other people notice or judge us. Researchers at Cornell once ran a clever test. They made students wear an embarrassing t-shirt, think giant celebrity face, and walk into a room full of strangers. The students guessed that about half the room noticed. In reality, fewer than 1 in 10 did. Most people were too busy thinking about their own shirt, their own worries, their own invisible spotlight. So here's a shift worth making. Instead of asking, how am I being judged? Ask, how am I making others feel? Because the truth is, most eyes are not on you. They're on their own persons. But everyone remembers how you made them feel in that moment. Seen, safe, inspired, or dismissed. That's where presence becomes power. Not in perfect words or flawless confidence, but in genuine connection. So next time you're replaying a conversation, wondering how you came across, flip the lens. The spotlight isn't the enemy, it's the mirror. Turn it outward. Notice others. Make them feel valued. And suddenly the room feels lighter. Not because people stop judging you, but because you stop needing their judgment to define you. That's your big sip for today. A reminder that the best way to shine under the spotlight is to point it at someone else. Now on to the lighter roast. The apology that never apologizes, and why relationships deserve better. Alright, for today's lighter roast, we're talking about something we've all experienced. The apology that someone manages to apologize to no one. You know the one. The I'm sorry you feel that way. Or the I regret the situation happened. As if the situation caused a problem and not them. It's incredible. These apologies float around like spiritual mist, present but never landing anywhere meaningful. And here's where it gets fun. In relationships, these non-apologies are basically emotional drive-bys. Quick, loud, and absolutely not stopping to clean up the mess. But let's be honest, most people aren't afraid of apologizing. They're afraid of what apologizing means. Accountability feels like admitting defeat, and nobody wants to lose the imaginary argument scoreboard they've been updating in their heads since Tuesday. So instead we get, I'm sorry if you took it that way, or I apologize, but, or let's just move on. But here's the twist, and it's a part we don't talk about enough. A real apology isn't about blame, it's about connection. An apology is one of the fastest ways to rebuild trust. It's the emotional glue that holds our relationships together in difficult times. Relationships don't fall apart because someone made a mistake. They fall apart because nobody wants to take ownership of the mistake. Because an honest apology sounds more like, hey, I get why that hurt. I see my part in it. Let's fix it. No theatrics, no disclaimers. Just two humans stepping toward each other instead of stepping away. And here's the roast. If your apology has more clause than a mortgage contract, it's not an apology, it's PR. You're not reconciling, you're rebranding. So, for today's lighter roast takeaway, if you want healthier relationships, romantic, friendly, or family, trade non-apologies for clarity. Not perfection, just honesty. Because sometimes, I'm sorry isn't an admission of guilt. It's an investment in peace. And that's your lighter roast for the morning. Say it clean, say it real, and watch how fast your relationships breathe easier. For commemorations today, November 6th, here are the highlights from around the world. First, International Day for Preventing the Exploitation of the Environment in War and Armed Conflict, a UN observance that reminds us that wars don't just take human lives, they devastate land, forest, water resources, and wildlife. It's a day to reflect on how protecting the planet matters even in the worst of human conflicts. It's also National Nachos Day in the US, celebrating the humble but mighty plate of chips, cheese, and everything we pile on top. Invented in the 1940s by Nacho Anaya, and it's now a cultural staple from stadiums to late-night kitchen. And finally, Saxophone Day, honoring the birthday of Adolphe Sax. A quiet salute to every sax riff that ever cut through a room and grabbed your attention. So alright, that's our morning. From flight slowdowns to vaping truth. From Turing's big question to the spotlight we put on ourselves. And even a little relationship honesty. The thread today was simple. Slow down, stay aware, and stay connected. And as always, be kind, be safe, and top off your cup. I'll see you tomorrow.